the student, the athlete, the culture. Welcome back, everyone, to the second series of Moses Squared podcast. We hope you enjoyed our last episode, This Is Us. We are now streaming episodes on Apple Podcasts, so make sure you subscribe to our channel as well as YouTube and Instagram and leave a review. Now, let's get into episode 15, This Is Us, Part 2, with a special guest, Jocelyn Willoughby. Welcome back, everyone, to Moses Squared podcast. We have another special episode for you guys. We're going to keep it along the same lines as our last episode, This Is Us. And so in this episode, we're going to be talking about police brutality, the response of protests regarding the death of George Floyd. But today we are bringing along a guest, one of my former teammates at UVA, class of 2019. She just finished up her first year of grad school, right?
Yeah.
And so she is now a WNBA player. Drafted top 10 in the 2020 WNBA draft. But Jocelyn Willoughby, there's a lot going on in our country right now.
Indeed.
You having to end your first year of grad school kind of short, or having to leave the university because of coronavirus, and then now we're in the midst of high racial tensions. How are you feeling right now? How are you coping with everything that's been going on over the past 3 months?
Yeah, I think initially, it's in terms of my school year being cut short, that was sad for me because that would have been the one time as a student athlete where I could just more so be a student. And to be able to be more engaged in the community. I think, we're like in our bubbles and always grinding or on the go. So I was looking forward to that time to take advantage of just university life. And, I've done a decent job, but to have the full experience. But that was cut short, and it's like, okay, over time you kind of learn to roll with the punches, and just try and be adaptable, even though it is very challenging. And so in this pandemic, and then also racial tensions, it's kind of been just sitting with uncertainty, and trying to figure out like what's next. What do things look like on the other side? For me, what is my season going to be looking like? And so it's interesting, like actually transitioning now into this new phase and new chapter, in the midst of everything else that's going on. So it's a lot, but just trying to find a way to be positive and just, take it day by day and figure out like, okay, it's uncertain, things are unclear, but we know that hopefully things will be positive.
Yeah. And Jocelyn, to piggyback off that, I mean, Americans, the U.S., Black lives, white lives, everybody's feeling, like you said, that uncertainty, that uneasy feeling. For you going into, a great journey that you're entering, a great space, how do you remain focused? What's your go-to as far as coping with these things and remaining locked in, so that you can do your job and do it at a high level?
Yeah, I think self-care is really important. And so for me, one thing that's been important is like unplugging off social media a little bit, not allowing myself to be drained. And so I think that's one huge thing, just like keeping a temperature of your energy, where you're at and what you need to recharge, but then also still finding a way to stay informed and stay educated. So for me, I'll use my news apps rather than going on social media, because I don't want to consume everything and just feel drained. And I think it can be kind of hopeless at times. So doing things like that, I think taking time to journal, figure out, like, I think, it's unfortunate, but this is a great time for that, to figure out, okay, what are your goals? What do you want next? And make a plan in a sense to get there, even though you don't have necessarily all the resources and things to be able to do that, but at least to get clarity on where you're trying to go and what you're trying to do. So I think those two things have been good for me to try and keep me focused, when all of this, and I don't know if it'll really ever clear up, because I don't think we'll return back to the normal that we once had, but when things calm down a little bit.
No, for sure.
Yeah,
And I think that anyone can kind of take a piece of that because, not only is social media throwing these things kind of at you nonstop, but, you also get perceptions of people who just may be ignorant to the facts. And so they may be sharing things that aren't 100% factual. And so last episode, me and Des talked about our initial reactions of the death of George Floyd and the video that went viral of his death, and how the emotions that we kind of went through, from feeling sad to feeling angry to feeling hopeless to feeling hopeful. Joss, what were your initial reactions and emotions after seeing that video?
I think the biggest one was probably just like confusion. Like, how has this happened again? And I say I wasn't surprised because I feel like we've seen it so many times at this point. And I don't know. I was like, I don't know if that should be something to be hopeful or optimistic over, because I think for me, in previous instances, people are like, how could this happen? Like, oh my God, this happened. And for this time, it was more outrage, there was more action, or just, condemnation of what happened. So,
sure.
There's a little bit of difference. I'm like, I don't know if that's a sense that we're moving in the right direction, or just in a sense bad, because that means people have just seen it too many times, where it's like there's no need to be surprised. But I think for me, it's just disappointment, frustration, confusion, to say like, how did this happen again? Like, I feel like we're back to the point where like enough is enough. You see the protests, and maybe it's different this time, but that's what we said last time too. And for the exact same words of like, I can't breathe to be repeated.
Yeah, and I think you're right. This one's a little bit different because it's a national movement. It's a global movement, I should say.
Yeah.
It's not only national here in the USA, but around the world, people are supporting Black Lives Matter, and they understand how valuable Black lives are. You're going into a new space, a new platform, celebrity status, we'll say. But how will you use the celebrity
I don't know about that.
It will be, taking in stride. Yeah, taking in stride. But how will you use this platform in order to make a change? Because you will be a leader, and people will look up to you, young girls, young boys, men, women, because what you're doing is a very special thing, and it's very difficult to do. So with that comes that great platform. How do you plan on using it?
Yeah, I think that's something that, is the big question for many people. I think I've thought about that a lot, and, I'm not quite sure like what all the steps, what all the actions are, because part of it for me is like, where do you start? For, all these systems and institutions are intertangled. Where do you start to make the long lasting change? But I think in the meantime, I'm like, okay, I can definitely have tough conversations with my teammates, with my friends, family, to figure out, okay, what get a better sense of what needs to be done. Where are people's levels of understanding? Where can you push them or challenge them more to understand the issues at hand? And I also think, aside from the conversations, finding ways to actually act. So, going out and voting, making sure people are registered to vote, like that is not going to solve everything, but that's a start. I think also, looking at the education system, and like, I don't think always relying on formal education is the answer, but informal education, like picking up books, reading articles, and understanding like, okay, why do we have all these disparities that are reducing the life opportunities or chances for Black people? How are we complicit in the system? What am I willing to sacrifice or commit to change that? And so I think the more we learn and educate ourselves, others, the more we can actually brainstorm rational solutions. And rational not meaning like, oh, it's going to be easy fix, but things that are like, it's going to take a long time, but if we commit to doing this, maybe change can happen.
Yeah, and that's a good point. One of the things that did come pretty quickly was a new law in Louisville, Kentucky, called the Breonna Taylor Law, or the Breonna Law, following the death of Breonna Taylor, who was shot more than 6 times in her own bed by police. And, people are saying that, her story or incident may be getting overlooked. And I mean, although there has been change in the aspect of they are banning no more no-knock warrants. How would you respond to people who are saying that too many times Black women get overlooked in different industries, whether that's, socially, different careers? How do you respond to that?
I mean, I think you do see it, and I think it's one of those things, like, you can't deny that it's not happening. I think, but it's also dangerous to pit men against women, right? Like, that impedes progress at the end of the day. Sure. But we also need to acknowledge that when we're looking at issues of Black Lives Matter or men and women together as a race, like, who is more privileged and kind of front and center in those conversations more often than not as Black men. And so I think obviously the lives of Black men matter, in some instances or in some ways they're punished more than Black women, but also we need to advocate for Black women too. And so I think Black men can take more responsibility in that and making sure the names and cases of Black women are set, just as we show up for Black men,
of course,
just reciprocating the love and support. But I mean, that's one thing that's been really interesting, even as athletes or people have been speaking out on the issues, like whose voices are amplified. I just saw a tweet the other day, and it's like Maya Moore and her, work in efforts to reform criminal justice in her own right. Like, why is she not given as much attention, accolades, or just props for taking such a
sacrifice? She took a whole year off from her career to devote her time to this cause.
Was it a year or 2 years? I thought it was one, and she decided to do another year. Is that true?
Yeah,
well, it was this past season. I know that for sure. This past WNBA season, I know that she didn't play because of it.
Yeah, and so just looking at, why isn't her story being amplified? When she was like the face of the league, pretty much. So just things like that, where it does make you question. Or if you go on ESPN, looking within the realm of sports and looking at their top headliners, like who are they talking about in terms of showing up to the protests, in terms of speaking their truth and giving their voice. So I think you see it, and I don't know how to change it, but I think that is an area that needs attention.
Well, we're still working on it. I think it's one of those things. Equality takes time. It's a battle that's ongoing for women, for Black women, Black men. It's definitely ongoing. But I believe what you said is true. The Black athletes, men have to support the women, because without one, there's really no other. I mean, unfortunately, men get more of the attention. So these NBA players, they got to support the WNBA, and I think it's something that has grown and something they continue to do. You see the Steph Currys, the LeBrons, the rest in peace, even the Kobe's that really help grow the women's game, and see how important it is, how vital it is for young women. Even the new CBA, something that really gives young women ability to make a living, without having to live some extreme life. The pros, as a pro basketball player, as a male, you get to live very comfortably. So everybody believes women should do the same, because you young ladies are very skilled, highly skilled, and I enjoy watching the game. I got an opportunity to do so from very close. So I'm going to put a little twist on it, Lauren. Jocelyn very well. She's going into a new space. Give me 2 things that you know about her that you think will help her succeed going into this next chapter of her life.
Only 2?
Only 2. Just give me the top 2.
I mean, Jocelyn is a very focused person. I think whatever she puts her mind to, she achieves. She's okay. I'll stick with that one. So that I say that because like she's a reader, and she doesn't just read for fun. She reads to educate, to spread knowledge, and so when I think about her game on the court, whatever she puts 100% into, she's going to succeed, and she's going to probably surpass it. And then second is that she takes criticism well. She you know, she definitely is a Jersey girl, but I think that she's able to, you know, receive it, comprehend it. May take a day or two, and then she's like, I understand why that was said. Let me see how I can fix things a little bit better. And I know that, you know, there's going to be some growing pains. I can only imagine in the WNBA, and so there's going to be things that are going to be taught to her from not only coaches but her peers. And so I think that she's going to really use that space well to allow it to grow her game. Yeah.
Those are two great things. Those are two great things because, you know, one of the most important things about being a pro, a young pro, you know, I've been in that space is remaining confident. So if you can receive information, sometimes it's not always, you know, coming exactly how we want it to, but if you can filter out that information, take it and add it to your game and still, you know, stay confident, it's invaluable.
And what is something that you, Joss, are looking forward to most? I know that this process hasn't been what you imagined, but you've had a lot of time by yourself to work on the things that you really want to work on. I know it probably has been challenging at times, but how do you stay focused, and what are those things that you do want to get better before, you know, you start the season?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it seems like the season's coming sooner than later, but we'll see.
Yeah.
But I definitely, confidence is one thing, I think, especially coming in as a rookie. And it's crazy, like you see all these big names where it's like, oh man, I used to watch you on TV, or, you know, going into college. And so now I'm competing against them. And so definitely my confidence in being like, I belong here, I'm competing here, I have value, and can contribute to the team and program. And I think my team especially, we're young, and so there's tremendous opportunity to do something special, both on and off the court. And so going back a little bit to your question, like what can I do with my platform, that's one thing that I'm trying to do is encourage, but one, like get involved in the community myself, which is a little bit harder in this time, but also encourage my team and the program to do the same, and not just fun about money, but actually be involved. And so I think we have a tremendous opportunity to do something special, to help elevate the Liberty program, and win some games and hopefully championships, but also to impact the communities that we're around.
And the Liberty has a great legacy. They've had great players come in and out of there. One of my favorite players growing up watching Rutgers as a kid was Kia Vaughn, and she played for Liberty at one point. And so just being able to see someone that was so close to home, also go close to home, which you're doing from North Jersey, you'll be not even 30 minutes away from the.
I mean, honestly, depends on traffic, you know.
That's true. That's true. So what is your advice to kids? You know, you talked about how other people can get involved with this movement that we're seeing among Black Lives Matter, but for kids who may be athletes or who may not be athletes, but who know right from wrong and can't vote, how can they get involved with this movement that is happening around us right now?
I think one thing that I realized for kids and people, especially in their most formative years, is to expose themselves to other perspectives, to other cultures, to other viewpoints. And I think in large part that is I was having this really interesting conversation with one of my friends the other day, and basically talking about, you know, obviously kids, they're innocent, they don't know much, they haven't been socialized, so you notice differences between people. You may notice hair color, different skin complexion, not hair color, hair texture, different skin complexion, so on and so forth. And it's important to like realize at some point they're going to transition to assigning meaning to those, right? And it's not a bad thing to notice differences, but it's important to recognize how people are interpreting those, right? So if you're looking at the different, you know, like you're a fair skin color than I am, okay, that's great. But do I start thinking like, oh, I'm inferior because of that? You know, when you start adding meaning to differences is where we have to check ourselves. But I think a lot of that happens when you're in your bubbles, you're in your homogenous communities, don't really have exposure, and are maybe basing everything you know or think on stereotypes. And so I think it's really important to try and expose yourself to others, to try and understand the humanity behind the person and the different looks, you know, and just get an understanding, because I think from there, then we can make progress where it's not I'm reacting in this way because I'm threatened by you for some subconscious thing that's going on in my head versus, oh, you just look different than me. And okay, you're different. I appreciate your differences. And, you know, I still have respect for you. I still see your humanity and so on and so forth. And so I think that's one big thing is just exposure at a young age and in a productive and like healthy way.
Education is key.
Yes.
Jocelyn, we appreciate your time. I just, producers, they just got into my ear and they said I can throw in this last wrinkle. Let's see if we can go 5 for 5 for our listeners who don't know Jocelyn, who want to get to know Jocelyn. I got 5 quick questions for you.
Okay.
Just give me the first thing that comes to your mind when I throw it at you.
Oh, these make me so nervous.
She was not prepared for this, so.
These will be easy. These are no-brainers.
Okay.
Jocelyn's favorite food. Go. Number 1, favorite food.
Chicken farm.
Favorite color?
Coral.
Who's your life idol?
Say that again?
Life idol. Your idol.
Probably my mom.
What's your favorite trait about yourself?
I think my authenticity.
Ooh, that's a good one. And who can't you wait to play in the WNBA? Who's that first jersey you looking to bust?
I mean, at this
I don't want to put a target on your back, so be careful.
I was gonna say. They may not be listening.
It's like whoever's in front, it doesn't even matter. You know,
I know, right? It's been so long.
We're all competing against everybody, so whoever it is, it doesn't matter. Gotta go hard, you know.
For
Absolutely.
Sure. Well, thank you so much, Joss. Yeah, no, thank you so much. We appreciate you coming on. As a former teammate, I can't wait to see you play in the WNBA. I might have to go get a package from the NBA TV. I know that they are showing more games on ESPN and ESPN2 and things like that. So can't wait to see you play. With everything going on, I hope that you stay focused and that you continue to keep God first. I heard you say that you were coming from church today.
Yes.
And just keep using your platform to spread love, educate the youth, and continue being aspiration or inspiring to other people.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Of course.
Absolutely. Authenticity. Thank you, Jocelyn. We appreciate you coming on today. You guys, tune into another episode of Moses Square, the podcast. We'll be back next week. Stay updated on the podcast. Follow me at Twitter and Instagram at Dezman M, DEZMANM.
You can follow me on Instagram at Lauren.Brielle with 2 E's at the end, and on Twitter at Lauren_Brielle with 2 E's at the end. However, to stay updated on everything Moses Squared, follow us on Instagram at Moses Squared Podcast, which is all one word. There, we will be posting everything from sports news to IGTV videos and more. We hope you enjoyed this episode. We'll catch you next time. God bless.